Emily Carter didn't plan to lie that evening. She wasn't the kind of woman who enjoyed attention or drama. At 26, she lived a quiet life in Portland, Oregon, working as a graphic designer, spending weekends with friends, and avoiding anything that reminded her of her past. But life has a strange way of cornering people, and that night she found herself in one of those corners. Her best friend, Lauren, was hosting an engagement party in a cozy country house just outside the city. Fairy lights sparkled across the wooden beams. Soft music played, and laughter floated through the air. Emily had promised herself she'd go, smile, and leave early. She didn't expect her ex-boyfriend Jason to walk in looking confident, handsome, and utterly unchanged. Jason had been her first serious relationship. He'd broken up with her 2 years ago, saying he needed space. That same week, he started dating someone new. Emily had spent months rebuilding herself after that heartbreak. Seeing him again felt like her breath caught in her chest. He walked over, holding a drink, flashing the same charming grin that used to melt her heart. "Well, Emily Carter," he said smoothly. "Didn't think I'd see you here." "You look good." She forced a polite smile. "Thanks, you too." There was a pause, the kind that fills the air when old memories come rushing back. He tilted his head, curious. "Still single?" That question hit harder than it should have. Emily could almost hear her heart thud. Around them, people were laughing and talking, but her world suddenly felt very small. She wanted to say something, anything that didn't make her sound weak or stuck in the past. And that's when she saw him. Ryan Bennett, her stepbrother. He was across the room chatting with a few guests near the fireplace. He'd been part of her life since she was 19, when her mother remarried his father. At first, they barely got along. He was older, confident, and a little too charming for his own good. But over the years, they learned to be friends. He teased her like a brother, looked out for her like a friend, and carried himself with the easy calm of someone who never lost control. In that desperate moment, he was the first person her eyes found. "Yes," she blurted out, turning back to Jason. "Actually, I'm not single." Jason raised an eyebrow, amused. "Oh, really? Who's the lucky guy?" Emily froze. Her brain raced. Every part of her screamed that this was a terrible idea, but her mouth had already moved before her mind could stop it. "Him," she said, nodding toward Ryan. Jason followed her gaze. His smirk faltered. "Your stepbrother." Emily's pulse jumped. "Not really," she said quickly. "Our parents are married, but we didn't grow up together. We're close. In a different way." At that exact moment, Ryan turned, caught her pointing, and frowned in confusion. She gave a helpless little wave. Jason's look was skeptical now, the kind that silently said, "Prove it." And then, like he had read her mind, Ryan walked over. Calm, steady, curious, the way he always was. "Everything okay?" he asked softly, glancing at Jason. Emily stammered. Yeah. This is my boyfriend, Ryan." Ryan blinked. His brow arched slightly, but to her surprise, a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Then, without missing a beat, he slipped his arm around her waist and said, "Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, Jason." Oh. Jason's smirk disappeared. "Oh, so you two are—" Ryan chuckled. "Yeah, it's been a few months now. Guess we weren't ready to tell everyone yet." The air between them changed instantly. Jason nodded stiffly, muttered something about needing to say hello to someone, and walked away. Emily didn't move. Her heart was racing. Ryan's arm was still around her, warm and steady, and she could barely breathe. The laughter and chatter around them faded into the background. She looked up at him, half embarrassed, half grateful. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't plan that." Ryan smiled, the kind of smile that said he wasn't angry, just amused. "I figured." "I panicked," she said quickly. He asked hand. "I didn't know what to say." "It's okay," Ryan said gently, pulling his arm away. "You looked like you needed saving. Consider yourself rescued." Emily exhaled, covering her face. "You must think I'm crazy." "It's not crazy," he said with a smirk. "Just dramatic." They both laughed, the tension fading a little. But under the laughter, something else lingered, something neither of them could quite define. Later, when they left the party, the night had grown quiet. The moonlight shimmered on the wet road as Ryan drove. The heater hummed softly. Emily sat in the passenger seat, her thoughts spinning. Ryan broke the silence. "So, you and your boyfriend, huh?" She groaned. "Don't start," he chuckled. "I'm not judging. You just owe me now." She looked at him, half smiling. "Oh, you?" "Yep," he said. "Next time I need a fake girlfriend, I'm calling you." Emily laughed, shaking her head. "Deal. But that's never happening." He smiled at her, that calm, confident smile that always made her feel safe. "You never know," he said quietly. For a moment, their eyes met. It was brief, nothing more than a glance. But it felt like a spark had passed between them, something warm, unexpected, and dangerous. Emily looked away quickly, pretending to be focused on the passing trees. Her heart wouldn't slow down. When they reached home, the house was dark and still. Their parents were away on a business trip, so it was just the two of them. As she unlocked the door, Ryan said softly, "Don't worry about tonight. No one's going to think anything weird." "I know," she said. "Thanks again for helping me out." He nodded. "Anytime, Em." She smiled and went to her room, closing the door gently behind her. But when she leaned against it, her smile faded into something uncertain. The image of Ryan's arm around her waist wouldn't leave her mind. His voice, his calmness, his quiet humor, it all replayed in her head. She told herself it was just a moment, just a silly mistake, just relief after an awkward encounter. But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. Because for the first time since she'd met him, the thought of Ryan Bennett made her heart flutter in a way it shouldn't have. And as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Emily realized something had shifted between them, something she couldn't take back. The lie was supposed to protect her from her past. Instead, it had opened the door to something entirely new. And she wasn't sure she was ready for what might come next. After that night, Emily thought the lie would fade quietly. She expected things to return to normal, back to shared breakfasts, random teasing, and separate lives under the same roof. But it didn't happen like that. Once the lie left her lips, it grew legs of its own. A few days later, Lauren called her. "Everyone at the party loved you two together," she said cheerfully. "I always thought you and Ryan had chemistry." Emily almost dropped her coffee. "Chemistry? He's my stepbrother." Lauren laughed. "Barely. You didn't grow up together. Come on, it's cute." That word cute stuck in Emily's mind all day. It shouldn't have. But it did not. Ryan seemed completely unbothered by everything. When she tried to bring it up, he just smiled and said, "Relax, Em. No one got hurt. We pulled off a good act." But that act didn't stop. It started with small things, a few inside jokes, shared looks at family dinners, and playful teasing. Then came moments that blurred the line between pretending and something deeper. Their parents were away on an extended trip to Canada. Leaving them alone in the cozy Oregon house for the holidays, they fell into a rhythm. Morning coffee together, grocery runs, evenings watching old movies. They talked about everything, her work stress, his plans to start his own business, childhood memories they'd never shared before. One Saturday afternoon, while decorating the porch for Christmas, Ryan untangled a string of lights while Emily handed him clips. Snow drifted down softly, and the air smelled like pine and cinnamon. "Hold this," he said, stretching up to hang the lights. His fingers brushed hers quick. Accidental, but enough to send warmth through her. She laughed awkwardly, trying to hide it. "You're terrible at this," she teased. He glanced down, smirking. "Maybe, but I'm great at pretending to be your boyfriend, right?" Her smile faded a little. "You were. Very convincing." Their eyes met for a heartbeat too long. The moment was light, but something in it made Emily's chest tighten. After that, the pretending became their unspoken game. They didn't talk about it, but they both played along. When neighbors dropped by, Ryan would casually rest a hand on her shoulder. When they went to the market, people assumed they were a couple and neither corrected them. One evening, As they sat by the fireplace watching It's a Wonderful Life, Ryan leaned back and said, "You know, people keep asking me how I managed to get you." Emily laughed softly. "And what do you tell them?" He turned his head toward her, eyes shining in the firelight. "That I just got lucky." Her laughter faded. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer. She could hear the faint crackle of fire, the soft rhythm of his breathing. For a moment, she almost forgot this was just a lie. The next morning, she woke up early and found him in the kitchen making breakfast. He wore a gray hoodie, sleeves pushed up, hair messy. He looked relaxed, too much like someone who belonged there. "Morning," he said with a sleepy grin. "Coffee's ready." She took the mug, trying not to stare. "You're getting good at this whole domestic life thing," he chuckled. "Guess practice makes perfect." There it was again, that easy warmth that felt like home. She wanted to tell herself it was harmless. But every time he smiled, it got harder to believe that. He shrugged. "I know, but I wanted to." She looked at him, confused. "Why?" He leaned against the car, smiling softly. "Because the idea of someone thinking we're not good together doesn't sit right with me." She didn't know what to say. That night she couldn't sleep. Every memory from the past few weeks played in her head. The fake smiles, the shared jokes, the way he said her name. Somewhere in between pretending something real had begun to grow. But Emily wasn't ready to admit it, not even to herself. A few nights later, snow fell heavily, covering the streets in white silence. They stayed inside, cooking pasta and playing cards. When the power went out, Ryan lit candles and laughed. "Well, looks like we're doing this the old-fashioned way." Flickering candlelight made everything feel softer. They talked for hours about dreams, fears, and things they never said out loud. At one point, Ryan said quietly, "You know, when people think we're together, it doesn't feel weird anymore." Emily froze. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "I mean, I forget it's supposed to be fake." Her heart skipped. She stared at him, unsure what to say. The warmth in his voice wasn't teasing or playful, it was honest. She finally whispered, "Me too." The silence between them was gentle but charged. She could see the reflection of the candlelight in his eyes, the quiet conflict there. For a long time, they just looked at each other, two people standing at the edge of something neither had planned. Then Ryan looked away, breaking the spell. "We should probably stop pretending soon," he said softly. Emily nodded, though her throat ached. "Yeah, probably." The next day, things felt different. They still laughed, still cooked together, but there was a quietness underneath. Every word felt measured, every glance heavier than it should have been. One evening, as Emily worked on her laptop, Ryan stood at the doorway. "You know," he said quietly, "you're a really good actress." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "And you're a really bad liar," she said. He smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her wondering what he'd been about to say. As she watched him disappear down the hallway, she realized that the pretending wasn't harmless anymore. It wasn't just a game. Because somewhere between laughter and shared secrets, she'd started falling for him. Not the fake boyfriend, not the kind, teasing stepbrother, but the man who had stepped in to protect her. Who made her feel seen again. And the scariest part wasn't that it was wrong. It was that it felt right. That night she sat by the window, watching the snowfall. Her heart caught between two truths. The lie she had told and the love that was quietly growing from it. What had started as a simple favor was turning into something neither of them could control. And though Emily didn't know it yet, pretending was about to change both their lives forever. By the time the new year arrived, Emily and Ryan's secret had turned into something everyone seemed to know, or at least believe. Friends, neighbors, even distant relatives treated them like a couple. What started as a small lie had quietly woven itself into their lives. And for a while, it almost felt easier to keep pretending than to untangle the truth. Emily told herself she could handle it. She told herself it was harmless, a story they'd laugh about later. But every time Ryan smiled at her, every time he brushed his hand against hers, That pretend line blurred a little more. Then came the night everything began to unravel. Their parents had returned from their trip and decided to host a family dinner to celebrate. The house was full, relatives, old friends, and a few people Emily didn't even recognize. The air smelled of roasted turkey, candles, and pine wood. Laughter echoed from the dining room. And right in the middle of it all, she and Ryan were once again. The couple thought Emily tried to act casual, sitting beside Ryan, laughing at the right moments, keeping her voice steady. But something inside her felt heavy. She couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, people were starting to notice the way she looked at him, the way her eyes lingered too long, or the way her smile softened when he spoke. After dinner, someone, Ryan's childhood friend, Mark, raised a glass and said with a teasing grin, "So, when are you two finally tying the knot? You've been inseparable lately." Laughter filled the room. Emily froze, her cheeks burning. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice trembled. Ryan chuckled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, very funny," he said. But the look in his eyes wasn't amusement, it was discomfort. Their parents smiled politely, unaware of the truth. "You two do look happy together," Ryan's dad said warmly. "It's good to see." Emily's stomach tightened. She wanted to disappear. Every word felt like another brick in a wall she couldn't escape. After dessert, she slipped out onto the porch to breathe. The cold air hit her face, sharp and refreshing. She hugged her arms around herself and stared at the night sky. Snowflakes drifted slowly under the porch light. A few minutes later, the door creaked open. Ryan stepped out, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. He handed one to her. "You vanished," he said softly. "I needed air," she murmured, staring at the snow. He nodded. Leaning against the railing beside her, the silence between them was thick, but not uncomfortable, just full of things unsaid. After a while, Emily whispered, "You didn't have to go along with all that tonight." Ryan sighed. "I didn't want to make things awkward in front of everyone." She looked at him. "It's already awkward." He turned, his breath visible in the cold. "You're right. Maybe we should tell them the truth. End this whole thing." Something in her chest ached. "And what do we say? That it was just a lie to save me from an embarrassing moment. That we pretended for months and made everyone believe something that never existed." His jaw tightened. It wasn't supposed to become something." Her voice trembled. "But it did, didn't it?" That stopped him. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he looked away, his voice lower. "I don't know what this is anymore." Her heart broke a little hearing that. "It's okay," she whispered. "Neither do I." They stood in silence, the soft sound of wind brushing through the trees. The porch light flickered faintly. Then, out of nowhere, Ryan spoke again, his tone raw, honest. "You make it really hard to remember this is fake." Emily's breath caught. She turned toward him, eyes searching. "You think about that too?" He gave a short, almost helpless laugh. "Every day." The air between them changed, heavy, fragile, and full of meaning. He stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers, his voice barely above a whisper. Maybe we took this too far." She swallowed hard. "Or maybe we didn't take it far enough." That single line hung in the cold air like a secret confession neither could take back. His eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the world had stopped. They stood inches apart. No words. No pretending. Just 2 people caught in the gravity of something they couldn't name. Ryan's hand almost reached for hers. But then the porch light flicked on. "Hey, you two." His mother called from the doorway. "Dessert's ready." They jumped slightly, stepping apart. Emily forced a smile. "Coming." As his mother disappeared inside, Ryan let out a quiet breath and ran a hand through his hair. "Guess that's our cue." "'Kay." Emily nodded, trying to steady her voice. "Yeah." They went back inside like nothing had happened, smiling and talking as if the world hadn't just shifted between them. But every glance, every touch, carried a different weight. Now one they both felt but couldn't show later that night. After everyone had gone to bed, Emily sat by her window, unable to sleep. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the heater. She stared out at the snow-covered yard, her mind replaying every word. Every look from the porch, Ryan's words echoed in her head. You make it hard to remember this is fake. She didn't know what scared her more, the fact that he'd said it, or how much she'd wanted to hear it. Across the hall, Ryan lay awake too. He kept seeing her face, the way her eyes had glistened in the porch light. The tremble in her voice when she'd said, "Maybe we didn't take it far enough." He turned over, running a hand over his face. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to protect her, not fall for her. But it was too late for pretending now. The next morning, things were different. They didn't talk about the porch. They acted normal, like always. But the air was thick with tension. Every small moment carried unspoken emotion. When Ryan reached for the sugar jar at breakfast, Kaya's hand brushed hers, and they both froze. Their eyes met briefly, but neither said a word. By evening, Emily couldn't take it anymore. She found him in the garage, fixing a loose cabinet door. "Ryan," she said softly. He looked up, cautious. "Yeah, are we okay?" He hesitated. "I don't know." She nodded slowly, her chest tightening. "I don't want to lose what we have." His expression softened. "You won't. But we need to be careful." Emily gave a small, sad smile. "Careful's hard when you stop pretending." He didn't respond, just looked at her like he wanted to say something but couldn't. That night, they both realized the same painful truth. The lie had gone too far to undo, but neither wanted it to end. They were trapped between reality and what they wished was real. A fragile, beautiful place that couldn't last forever. Outside, snow kept falling, quiet and endless. Inside, two hearts beat just a little too fast for people who were only supposed to be pretending. And though they both tried to convince themselves otherwise, deep down they knew the act was falling apart. What they were feeling wasn't a mistake anymore. It was real, and that made it terrifying. The days after the family dinner felt strangely quiet. The laughter, the warmth, the pretending, all of it had faded into a silence that neither Emily nor Ryan knew how to break. They still lived under the same roof, still saw each other every day. But something invisible stood between them now. Ryan had grown distant. He was polite, careful, and always busy with work or errands. The easy teasing that once filled their mornings was gone. Emily noticed it, felt it in every short answer and quiet glance. It was like watching someone slowly walk away while pretending nothing had changed at first. She tried to tell herself it was for the best. They'd gone too far with the lie. Maybe the space was what they both needed. But late at night, when the house was still, she couldn't stop replaying that moment on the porch. His voice, his eyes, his words. "You make it hard to remember this is fake." Those words had opened something inside her that couldn't be closed again. A week passed, then two. Ryan barely stayed home anymore. When he did, he avoided being alone with her. He'd eat quickly, retreat to his room, and say goodnight through the half-open door. It hurt more than Emily wanted to admit. Finally, one evening, she couldn't take the silence anymore. She knocked softly on his door. "Come in," he said. He was sitting at his desk, laptop open, papers scattered everywhere. His face looked tired, his eyes shadowed. "Ryan, can we talk?" she asked quietly. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling. "About what?" "You know what she said? About us." He hesitated. "There's no us, Em. There never was. It was all pretend." The words hit her like a punch. She tried to keep her voice steady. "Then why does it hurt so much?" He stood up, frustrated. "Because it wasn't supposed to go this far. I was just trying to help you, and then everything got out of control." She looked at him, tears threatening. Out of control. "You mean feelings?" He didn't answer. His silence said enough. Emily's voice broke. "You can lie to yourself, but don't lie to me. You felt something. I saw it." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his voice low and heavy. "Of course I felt something. You think it's easy pretending to love you, and then realizing maybe I wasn't pretending at all." The room fell silent. Emily stood frozen, her heart pounding. Then why are you running from it? She whispered. He turned away, staring at the floor. Because it's wrong, Emily. Our parents are married. People wouldn't understand. Eyes filled. We're not kids. We didn't grow up together. We didn't plan this. It just happened. He looked up at her, torn between logic and emotion. And what do we do if everyone finds out? What do we tell them? That a lie became real. She took a shaky breath. We tell them the truth. But Ryan shook his head. It's not that simple. Just swallowed hard, forcing the words out. Then I'll make it simple. I love you. The words hung in the air like a confession she could never take back. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he stepped forward, his voice quiet and pained. You shouldn't have said that. Why? She asked, tears falling freely now. Because it's true. He closed his eyes. Because now I can't pretend anymore. And then he walked past her, out of the room, leaving her standing there with her heart breaking. That night, Emily cried for the first time in months. Not because she regretted what she said, but because silence was his answer. The next few days were worse. Ryan stayed away completely. He spent long hours at work, sometimes not coming home until late. When he did, he'd nod politely, ask if she'd eaten, and disappear upstairs. It was like watching someone erase every memory you made together, but the truth couldn't be erased so easily. A week later, Emily got a call from her mom. Her and Ryan's father were coming home early from a trip. There would be a family dinner that weekend, just like before. The thought made her heart twist. She didn't want to sit across from Ryan, pretending again. But she couldn't avoid it. The night of the dinner, the table was set perfectly. Candles glowed, laughter filled the room, and Emily wore a brave smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ryan sat across from her, polite and distant. To everyone else, they looked fine. But she could feel the emptiness between them after dinner. When everyone started talking in the living room, Emily quietly slipped out the back door. The night was cold, the stars bright over the frozen lake behind their house. She walked down to the dock, wrapping her coat tighter, and let the quiet wash over her. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps crunching in the snow. She turned. Ryan was there, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain. I figured you'd be here, Kay said softly. She faced the lake again. You're good at figuring things out. He took a few steps closer. Emily. About what you said the other night, you don't have to explain, she interrupted. I get it. You don't feel the same. He hesitated. That's not true. She looked at him, confused. Then what is... Ryan exhaled deeply. I tried to stay away because I thought it was the right thing. I told myself it was wrong, that it would just make life messy. But every time I saw you, every time I didn't see you, it felt worse. Emily's breath caught. He walked closer until they were only a few feet apart. His voice dropped to a whisper. You were supposed to be my fake girlfriend, remember? But I stopped pretending a long time ago. Tears filled her eyes. Then why didn't you say something? Because I was scared, he admitted. Scared of what it meant. Scared of losing you if it was just me who felt it. She smiled through her tears. You didn't lose me, Ryan. You just had to stop pretending. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, slowly, Ryan reached out and took her hand. His touch was warm despite the cold night air. No more pretending. He said quietly. Emily nodded, her voice barely a whisper. No more pretending. They stood there together, the lake shimmering beneath the moonlight, the world finally quiet around them. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were questions, complications, things they'd still have to face. But for now, it didn't matter. For the first time, everything between them was real. As the wind brushed gently through the trees, Emily leaned her head against his shoulder. Her heart felt lighter, calmer, like she'd finally come home. The lie that had once been her shield had become the bridge between two lonely hearts. And though the road ahead was uncertain, she knew one thing for sure. Love had found its way through the most unexpected truth of all. Sometimes pretending isn't the problem. Sometimes it's how we discover what was real all along.